Thousands of websites stage an online protest against proposed anti-piracy laws in the US. Supporters of the legislation say action is needed to stop online piracy and copyright infringement, but opponents say the act will curb freedom of speech and threaten the internet itself. This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Taimur Nabili. More than 7,000 internet sites went offline on Wednesday in a mass protest affecting millions of users across the world. The 24-hour shutdown is in opposition to proposed anti-piracy laws that are being debated in the US Congress. The bills are the product of years of lobbying by the music and film industries, who claim that piracy is robbing them of profits. The protesters include one of the internet's most visited websites, Wikipedia, whose founder Jimmy Wales has called for a public uprising against such laws. Kath Turner explains.
If you want to research something on the internet on Wednesday, don't rely on Wikipedia for help. The company has shut down its English language website for 24 hours, a protest against proposed American legislation.
We think it galvanizes the community and sends a message, not only in this country but around the world, that the internet is an open and free platform that needs to be protected and understood by policymakers everywhere.
The Stop Online Piracy Act, Sopa, and Protect Intellectual Property Act, PIPA, target foreign websites that contain illegally downloaded files. But there are also severe consequences for anyone associated with the so-called rogue sites. For example, the legislation could give the US government the power to shut down internet search engines which provide links to the sites, as well as companies which advertise on them or process their financial transactions. Internet giants Google, Twitter, Yahoo and eBay have written an open letter claiming the bills would stifle innovation and free speech. And it was a hot topic at an Occupy Wall Street rally in Washington, D.C.
It's going to allow them the potential to get rid of websites that they don't like. And right now, the internet is about the only free thing we have left.
It's an attack against our free speech rights under the United States Constitution.
Most of the people pushing for SOPA and PIPA are in the film and music industries. These days, anyone can illegally download movies, TV shows and tunes. Supporters of the legislation say the debate has been distorted and they've launched their own online campaigns. The bills have not yet gone to a vote in the US Congress, but appear to have support within both major parties. An added factor, the 2012 US election, with politicians desperate to hold on to power.
One of their strongest supporters for many, many years has been the Hollywood industry, the copyright industry in general, who have given them, millions and millions of dollars of campaign contributions. So they want to make sure that the contributions are going to continue to flow this year.
At least 7,000 websites have joined Wikipedia for Wednesday's blackout, drawing worldwide attention and creating one of the biggest online revolts in the history of the internet. Kath Turner, Al Jazeera, New York.
Well, the growing movement of discontent appears to have rattled the White House, which has issued a statement suggesting that President Barack Obama would be reluctant to sign the bill in its current form. The statement says, quote, "We will not support legislation that reduces freedom of expression, increases cyber security risk, or undermines the dynamic, innovative global internet." The statement also added that online piracy needed a serious legislative response, but one that must not inhibit innovation. So, are the proposed anti-piracy laws compatible with internet freedom? And if not, does it matter? To help answer that question and more, I'm joined by three guests. In Washington, D.C., Wayne Rash is a writer and former editor of the online technological news site eWeek. He's also the author of several books, the most recent being Politics on the Nets. Also in Washington, D.C., Julian Sanchez is a research fellow at the think tank the Cato Institute. And in Vienna, Andreas Manak is a lawyer specializing in intellectual property. He also represents a number of Austrian film companies. Gentlemen, welcome to you all. And Andreas, let me begin with you. I guess at the sharpest end of this particular debate, given your work and the people that you represent. Now, what is the rationale behind these laws and are they necessary?
Yes, they are necessary, I think, because the freedom of internet is misused by a lot of people who make millions, billions of money on the back of the content industry. Not only the movie industry, music and software, and most recently also the printing industry. The editors, the editing companies will lose a lot of money because of the so-called freedom of the internet. And therefore, for a couple of years now, not only the US but also the European Union has tried to put legislation in place to improve the content protection.
All right,
of the
well,
internet.
let me put aside for a minute this contention that billions of dollars are being lost. I mean, that's an entirely different argument. And let me just ask you, why should we care? The industry, the internet, the movie and music industry in the US, which is basically who we're talking about here, actually doesn't contribute that much to GDP or much else. So why should the entire political system in the US be geared towards serving their ends?
I mean, it's basically a question if the rule of law applies only offline in the real world, or if we also have legal rules applying to the internet. If you put away all the laws, and not only copyright law, then it would be a disaster also for the industry that is promoting broadband access and so on. I mean, it's not a question of free internet and content industry. There are also other industries involved. And
right.
I quote Mr. Black from the Computer and Communications Industry Association of the United States, who said, these laws, Sopa and others, will destroy our business case. So it's not a question between good and evil. It's rather a question between different industries protecting their profits.
All right, Wayne Rash, let me put that to you. Without some kind of legislation, or this kind of legislation in particular, we're going to see any number of industries suffering. Do you agree?
Well, there's legislation and there's legislation. The current bills, as they were proposed before they were put on hold, and it's important to note that both Sopa and PIPA, which is the Senate version of Sopa, are currently on hold and are not expected to be acted on this year. However, they had some fairly draconian provisions in them that would do more than just provide protection for copyright holders. They would give unprecedented amounts of power to even local judges in some cases. That being said, the people who create content, people like me who write for a living, people who make movies, people who make music, need some means of protecting their intellectual property. I don't think destroying the internet is the way to do it, but there needs to be some kind of protection because we all have stuff stolen. I have stuff used without permission on a daily basis, and so do a lot of other people. But I think there's got to be a better way to do it. And I think it does matter. It matters a great deal because it severely restricts access to information on the internet if it's done the wrong way.
All right.
And unfortunately, the way that is proposed is probably simply going to result in an internet that doesn't function very well.
All right, a couple of people there speaking from the perspective of content providers, albeit from slightly different angles. Julian Sanchez, let me ask you, what angle do you approach this from? What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I agree that if you have a proposal that would work at an acceptable cost to reduce piracy, of course, no one could object to that. Although it's important to really look at some of these claims that are made about, billions of dollars in losses or hundreds of billions and thousands of jobs lost. You know, if you really look at the numbers, if you look at the output of the movie and music industries, the number of films and albums released every year, at their revenues, this is not the picture of an industry that's dying. In the time that we've seen the rise of online piracy, these industries have been, really as healthy as ever. That said, the important thing to note here is also that these measures are not going to work. Over the last 10 years, these industries have tried shutting down successfully, one site after another. You think of all the different peer-to-peer networks we've seen rise up and then shut down again over the past decade.
All right.
And if you look at the rate of piracy, it never actually makes a difference. The pirates always find a way around it. It's legitimate sites that are wrongly targeted and the threat to innovation that represents that will be the real effect of the bill.
Well, let's put that to Andreas in Vienna then. What is your response to that? I mean, we have seen throughout the life of new technology the music and movie industry is trying to stifle almost everything. They tried to block the use of video recorders. They tried to block the use of MP3 players, and nothing works. Shouldn't they be paying attention to a slightly more useful approach to this problem?
Well, firstly, I would say that any of these laws and any of the technological measures the content protection requires does not work 100%. That's clear. You also would not expect the laws against shoplifting to reduce shoplifting to zero. So you have to accept some kind of workaround, some avoidance here. So also, if we come to the most discussed topic of Sopa and the other legislation here, the domain blocking, DNS blocking, it's just one more way to get rid of the most infringing websites over the world. In Europe, we have some kind of legislation in place here. Some countries have also jurisdiction providing that DNS blocking is a proper means if you don't have any other possibility to shut down a site.
Yeah,
so,
let me stop you there for a minute, Andrea, if I could, because I mean we're sort of fringing on two particular aspects of this. First, the basic ideology, or at least the basic theory behind this, and second, the practicality. What you were just referencing there was the practicality, and I could see Julian shaking his head at your suggestion that this is just a simple measure of blocking some DNS. But let me just start with the theory, though, because your suggestion that the industry will allow some degree of leakage, if you like, isn't actually true, is it? I mean, we've had the industry trying to ban children singing songs on YouTube. We've had people in our industry, in television, we have to pay very specific attention to what happens to be on the background of a particular picture because the industries are so I guess, obsessed with legislating on this issue that they won't allow the tiniest thing to go through.
Well, I can't comment on any type of infringement and any measure people would take. It's not only the industry. You know, from a legal point of view, the creator of a piece of art, however small or unimportant it might be, is the owner. And that's the basic idea of what copyright is all about.
Yeah, but the basic idea of the value of pursuing copyright infringement, I guess, is one of the things we're talking about here. And Wayne, let me put that to you, because you say some of your work has been pirated, some of the stuff you've written. But tell me, how much have you truly lost by stuff being published without your say-so? And how much are you prepared to spend in terms of legal fees in order to stop that happening?
Well, you know, I think if I really counted it all up and I looked at everything that's been stolen and how much I would have gotten paid had they actually paid what they should have paid, I'm probably out 20, 30 bucks, maybe even $50. Who knows? It's not a lot of money here. It's more a matter of I wish they would ask before they used it.
So I'll put the question to you that I was just putting to Andreas, and that is too much attention being paid to trying to maintain a status quo when a lot more effort should be being put into finding a new way to deal with what is ultimately a unique and genre-transforming technology?
Absolutely. I wrote a column in eWeek yesterday, which I suspect, by the sounds of it, you've read. And there's absolutely no question that the current approach is absolutely wrong. This whole idea of DNS blocking is a terrible idea. The whole idea of search engine blocking is even worse, if possible. These are not the answers to solving the problem of misuse of intellectual property. And the point that that has been made about how much is lost is, quite frankly, well made. I mean, it hasn't been that much money. I don't think I'm out more than the price of a good lunch, quite frankly, if I counted it all up. It's one of those situations where it's like you find somebody who's got a piece of stolen property, so instead of arresting them and getting it back, you blow up their house. it's just completely out of proportion.
Julian Sanchez, let me ask you about the technical aspects of this. We were talking a moment ago about the practicality of the kind of DNS blocking and the kind of measures that are being proposed here. But what about the broader elements of freedom of speech, the broader elements of allowing other people to go about their business without having it dictated to them by a couple of industries who claim to be losing money?
No, I mean, I think that's certainly an enormous issue here. Certainly because in at least the United States' constitutional tradition, there's a very strong presumption against what our courts call prior restraint. That is, against silencing speech before there's an adversarial proceeding where, you know, both sides are represented before a court and there's a final verdict that, yes, someone has committed a crime. You don't pull books off the shelves just in response to a one-sided judicial ruling. And in particular, you know, we have a mechanism in the United States currently where specific content can be ordered down by copyright owners. That is, if a video on YouTube is infringing someone's copyright, they can demand that YouTube take that specific video down. And sometimes mistakes are made, or someone makes a claim that they don't have a right to, really. But but those mistakes are limited. The problem with this is that it targets not just individual specific pages or content, but entire domains. And that's necessarily going to be far too broad, because, I mean, that's like targeting an entire platform. It's the difference between saying, this YouTube video is infringing my copyright, and you have a lot of infringing videos, so the entire platform YouTube should be taken down, including things that aren't copyright infringing. There's just, again, way too big a disconnect between the goal and the effect.
So, Andreas, let me ask you to address those points.
Yes, well, first of all, I totally agree that a prior censorship is no means to protect copyright, of course. I understand that there are legal procedures in place, and if you can take someone to court, then there will be a ruling if some content is protected or not. But what we are dealing about, and particularly the Sopa legislation, is about domains and platforms which are somewhere abroad. You don't know the owners, you don't know where the servers really are. And in this case, there is no one you can take to court. Well, and there you have the last resort of domain blocking. And I don't agree that this does not work. We have this in Austria. We have some legislation and some jurisdiction here to do this. And it doesn't work 100%. Well, but still, it is some kind of protection.
Let me stop you there for a minute, because there's a couple of points that you made there that a lot of people would disagree with. Let me ask Julian to address them.
I mean, so the important thing to note here, right, is that the way this works is that it's what's called an in rem proceeding. That is, it's a proceeding in the court in the U.S. against the site itself, which means the owner of the site, if they can find him, gets a notification. But the judicial proceeding goes ahead whether or not they participate. And it's not like they're given a lot of time to be able to answer and participate and figure out U.S. law and able to respond. We have an existing mechanism where the sites that the industry is complaining about, these file locker sites, are sites that themselves have been sued successfully. So it's not that, oh, these sites can't ever be reached by a court of law. I think the real problem is that sometimes they lose those lawsuits, and this is a mechanism to get that to get that process streamlined, so they don't have to worry about protracted litigation.
Right. I want to bring it back to the broader idea of the usefulness of copyright, though, in a practical sense. Wayne, let me put it to you. Obviously, if you create something that's of value, you want to be the person that principally profits from that value. But are the copyright laws at the moment, as we have them, useful? Do they serve the function that they were supposed to serve? And do you think that with the advent of digital technology, they are, again, serving the content that they are supposed to serve?
I think they are. I think the issue is not whether copyright should exist or should not exist. The issue is really how the copyright laws are applied in the digital world. I make a living being a writer. I should be compensated for what I do as a writer. And as such, if someone takes what I've written and publishes it and doesn't pay me, then effectively they're taking money from me.
But where do you draw the line? I mean, if you string 4 words together in a particular order, should you be allowed to copyright that? If you put a certain colour, if you paint your banana a certain colour, is that a copyrightable issue? I mean, issues like this have been known to get to ridiculous proportions.
They can, and pretty much any law taken to the extreme can reach a ridiculous proportion, and that's true in the United States, and it's true pretty much everywhere else as well. Frequently those things can be challenged in court, so a 4-letter string that anyone might say might be difficult to hold a copyright up. But if you look at some of the taglines that products have that they use in commercials or that they use as trademarks, you know, quite frankly, you have to ask yourself if that's a legitimate use for copyright or trademark protection in any case. But the fact is, anything can be misused. That doesn't mean that the basic idea is wrong.
Julian, let me ask you whether we shouldn't be thinking in market terms about this. And if we do think in market terms, shouldn't we be acknowledging the fact that the content production industry is so vast now, and the amount of content that's out there is so great, that actually what the music producers and the movie producers should be doing is bringing their prices down in order to balance supply and demand?
No, I think that's right. I mean, if you want to talk about an actually effective anti-piracy measure in the U.S., I think it's Netflix. You know, what we've learned, I think, over the last few years is that when companies actually make their content available to consumers who want to buy it at a reasonable price in a convenient form, you know, streaming into your home, people are happy to pay for it. People, you know, piracy wasn't so much a function of people not being willing to pay for the content they like, but that they had been struggling so hard against moving forward and actually delivering it in a way that people have come to expect in the 21st century. You know, if you look at overseas and in the developing world in particular, you know, you see companies trying to market their products really effectively at U.S. prices in countries where, you know, sort of individual per capita purchasing power is nowhere near what it is in the United States, and then they're surprised that you know, that they're having trouble breaking into those markets. It's not that people are not willing to pay; it's that there needs to be you know, a rethinking of how they're delivering content in a way that you know, people in that market are able to consume.
Andreas, let me just ask you one question. The point that Julian made there: if the industry provides the product to the consumer in a way and at a price that they like, there won't be a piracy problem. Does the industry actually see it that way? Do they believe that?
No, that's totally untrue, because what we see, I mean, I know the European market better than the US situation, but legal platforms, for example, for movie distribution, cannot survive because of the illegal competition. If you have to compete with a product that costs 0, you can't ask a proper price to be efficient and to be successful. So, basically, what Julian is suggesting is that if you find that the Rolex I would like costs too much, you promote shoplifting. And I don't think that is a way to promote the internet.
All right, that's an interesting analogy. That's an interesting analogy, but we haven't got time to pursue it, unfortunately. I just want to give the last word to Wayne. Wayne, where is this going ultimately?
I think if you're talking about the Sopa law, I think ultimately we'll see a law that is less draconian, probably more well thought out, probably has more input from the internet community than the current law does. As far as copyright's concerned, I think Julian makes an excellent point. When you can buy something for a reasonable price and it's readily available, while there will always be people who steal stuff, most of the time people won't. All
right. We'll leave it there. Wayne Rash in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much. Also in Washington, D.C., Julian Sanchez. Thank you. And in Vienna, also Andreas Manak. To all of you, thank you very much indeed for your input here on Inside Story. And thank you for joining us on this program. Just to remind you, if you want to send us some feedback, our email address is insidestory@aljazeera.net. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.